What's up, metal and heavy music fans? This is Flight of Icarus with MetalTrenches.com. If you haven't already, please do subscribe to the channel, and if you enjoy the video, please do give it a like. Today we're going to continue on with what I'm calling the FFO series playlist, where we take a band and I try to recommend some more underground groups that are in a similar style that I think are also worth your attention. And the focus this week is going to be bands that are kind of like Amon Amarth. And so let me start by saying I am a big Amon Amarth fan, have been over the years, but I gotta say, I'm just not digging the new stuff. They're dropping Berserker via Metal Blade Records this year, and I've heard the whole thing, I've listened through it a few times, and I gotta say, it just feels tired. The riffs are kind of uninspired, and more importantly, the energy is just not there, because we could make the argument, and I have, and I've heard other people make this, that their riffs have been kind of copy and paste for some time now, but what kept them going is that they had that great energy behind them. There was so much just bombacity behind it. There's some big personalities, and you would just listen to it and feel like, I have to see this live. And I just don't get that vibe from this album at all. And I think that's the most important thing for a Viking metal band to have, is just that drive to get you on your feet. I should listen to an Amon Amarth album and want to grab an axe and go berserker, not take a nap. And that's just how I feel through most of this album. Is it's kind of sleepy. I get kind of tired listening to it, but it does have its decent moments. I like the track Valkyria, has a cool guitar harmony on it. Also, Wings of Eagles and Skull and Hati feel more like older songs from kind of the Twilight of the Thunder God era. So I don't hate this album, it's just incredibly average feeling. And again, it just inspired me to say, okay, there are some other groups that I've heard in the past couple years that I just think, if you do like this, or if you don't like this and or find yourself wanting more like me, then maybe you'll like these other groups too. So I've got for you 3 underground bands that I think are more worth your time, money, and attention than this new Berserker album. And again, this isn't so much about ragging on Amon Amarth. Again, I'm a fan. I was actually a big defender of Deceiver of the Gods. So if you like this album, that's great. I hear you. But this is all just about kind of expanding people's horizons and giving people some other great bands who are much deserving of attention. Also note that these are all melodic death metal bands, but they're definitely further on the folk end of the spectrum, so keep that in mind. Amon Amarth is a pretty straightforward melodic death metal band that just happens to have Viking and folk motifs in their lyrics and in some of their kind of chord structures and melodies. These bands actually incorporate folk instrumentation on top of those things. So we're going to start with Canadian Celtic folk melodic death metal band Battle Soul. They put out an album in 2018 called Sunward and Starward via CDN Records. The band kind of prides itself in being folky where they need to be, as they put it, but avoiding active engagement in the usual tropes kind of just because. To quote the press release, in Battle Soul's versatile world, the Renaissance fair-like moments are never at the expense of sheer brutality, and I think that sums it up pretty well. These guys have a strong foundation of just great hooks, and then also all sorts of other instrumentation on top of that. They even toss in a lot of variation with the vocals. There's even some like high-pitched heavy metal vocals on the song All I Understand, and while I normally find that kind of cheesy, and it's not really my style, it just works really well here. Everything that they do, they just bring all these elements together and make it work. It's just really great stuff.
A sudden attack in the night. How did you want this? This goes in like me. Pick up in the storm to something, but there's blood on the ice and there's ice in our veins.
Next, we've got Ohio band Winterhymn with their album Blood and Shadow via Soundage Production. Now, when I think Vikings, I don't usually think of the Midwest, but these guys pull it off absolutely. And I shouldn't just say these guys, actually, because there are some female members in this band as well. It's actually a 6-piece band, and it includes full-time violin and keys, in addition to the standard vocals, guitars, drums package that most bands are going to give us. So as a result, and as you'd hope to expect from a band that large, they deliver some great atmosphere, which is aided by really solid production. It's got this very cold, classic, folky feel to it. Also very catchy. Lots of great sing-along moments, especially on the song The Chosen End. I cannot avoid singing along to certain parts of that track. Now this last one takes a little bit of a different approach. We're going back to Scandinavia for this one, Finland to be precise, but whispered are not what you'd expect. So I hope you like samurai imagery and Japanese instrumentation, and if you do, you'd better check out their 2016 album, Metsutan, Songs of the Void. So again, you heard that right. This is a Scandinavian band, but they are playing in a Japanese style with Japanese themes and imagery. It's kind of what I imagine Mors Principium Est or early Soilwork might sound like if they had traded their synthesizers for folk instruments. Or maybe even think Ensiferum meets Tenger Cavalry. And cultural appropriation be damned, because these guys absolutely kill it. They knock it out of the park. They're great composers, both in terms of the melodic death metal elements and the Japanese folk elements, bringing them together just in this perfect synchronicity. And on top of that, they're also quite capable of carrying longer arrangements like the powerful closing track, Blood-Red Shores of Enoshima. It's definitely an album and a band that threw me for a loop when I first checked them out, and I hope it will do the same for some of you. So that's it. 3 bands that I think are very much worth your time, whether you're a fan of Amon Amarth or you're like me and find yourself disappointed in their more recent material. If you walked away from this video feeling like you got something that you hadn't heard of before and are really interested in listening to, then please do give us a like. Please consider subscribing to the channel, because there are all sorts of other videos on here, both in this series and on our podcast series, and in any other number of directions that might help you find other great bands like this. And if you're a regular listener and you continue to find new music in this way and feel like we're that value added, this is the channel you go to figure out what's the new band that I'm going to listen to, then please do consider checking out our Patreon, and donating even just $1 a month helps us out. At higher tiers, you also get more perks. And we have a mailing list in addition to our social media. If you sign up for that, I send out an email directly every Friday, and that'll make sure that you don't miss any new content. But that's enough for now. Flight of Icarus signing off. I will see you in the trenches.